Greetings, friends. I just got back from the Winter Carnival of Magic down in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and I was reminded while I was there of just how important friendships are to Magic. And then that got me thinking that I hadn't yet talked about Magic Between Friends, a booklet put out by John Graham and Asi Wind. So in this episode, we're going to discuss not only this book, but the role that friendship and camaraderie has in the world of magic and how it can help you improve your magic. Normally, I would just be discussing a book or a topic that I think would help you, but I'm mixing the two up because this book isn't really that big, and I think the two correlate to each other. But if you're only interested in one piece of content or the other, I will drop some timestamps down in the description below, so feel free to jump around to whatever helps you the most. Let's talk first about some of the physical characteristics of this book if you're interested. It is a softbound, self-printed book, about 75 pages, and covers a handful of tricks as well as several essays between John and Asi describing their thoughts on a particular trick or how they arrived there, the history, provenance, that type of thing. We'll get into some of those details here in a minute. In case you don't already know the two of them, John Graham is a professional magician out of Scranton, Pennsylvania.
They call it Scranton. What? The Electric City. Scranton. What? The Electric City.
And he's published several books with Vanishing Ink, most notably Stage by Stage, which helps you take your magic from close-up to working to a bigger act for bigger audiences like a parlor setting. Great book. And of course, Asi Wind, you probably know him. He's been a consultant to David Blaine. He's a professional magician in his own right. He just finished a run of his own off-Broadway show in New York City. And of course, we know and love him for some of the magic books that he has published. Repertoire, which was a collection of some of his own magic with hand-painted illustrations. It's great. And before we begin, his explanation of pre-show, how to get into it, etc. The book has approximately 3 effects in it. The first trick in the book is called Final Sale, and if you have Stage by Stage, then you've already read this. The premise is the performer comes out, he's wearing a suit coat, there's some gags and funny lines that you can use if it suits your personality. You're showing everyone that there's still a price tag hanging on your suit. You ask them to come up with some numbers, and lo and behold, the price that they named and came up with matches the price that's on the tag on the inside of your coat. Interestingly enough, John originally came up with this premise and contributed it to Apocalypse magazine, where it was published for the first time. More recently, there's been another derivative of that using a gimmick between Richard Sanders and Michelle Huot. When that trick came out, that rekindled John's interest in the effect, and he came up with Final Sale. In this book, you're getting that original version, and you're getting an extended version with a slightly different method and a slightly different appearance to your audience. The effect is basically the same. In the updated version, your participants and audience will be left with the impression that that price tag was printed. I don't want to give too much away here, but you're getting 2 handlings for the same effect for the audience. The second effect is a Triumph style routine with a little bit of play it straight Triumph feel. Is giving you a really cool quasi-memory demonstration that you can present. And then finally, Anybody and Nobody. If you're familiar with Paul Gertner's Unshuffled, the idea is the same, that a deck of cards has something written across the side of it, and that becomes visible to your audience. The difference from Unshuffled is that you don't need to be able to perform a pharaoh. It does use a gimmicked deck, which they will teach you how to make and use in the book, and you'll need a few types of gaffs that you probably already have or could easily get a hold of to perform those effects. There is a 4th listed item. It's not so much a magic trick that you would perform for a paying audience as it is a gag for members of your magic club. One of the friends of Erudite Magic is the sponsor of this episode, Don's Magic and Books. Why is Don a friend? Many reasons. Don is a great guy, but he also focuses in his business on selling magic books, which is something that's near and dear to all of our hearts. If you haven't already, visit his website via the link down in the description below and check out the huge assortment of books that he has there. He has the latest and greatest, all the newest things that you want, as well as some older, out-of-print books that are harder to find, and you're going to love getting a hold of some of these priceless gems to include in your library. His inventory is constantly changing, so be sure to shop with him often, and of course, you already know you get fast and free shipping if you meet very minimum thresholds within the United States. I don't know what you're waiting for. Start shopping with my friend Don Bursell this week at Don's Magic and Books. Perhaps more interesting than the tricks, though, you're also getting the back and forth, the interaction between Asi and John as they worked through these tricks to improve them. Asi and John met in New York City in 2001, and this is where I think the narrative of friendships in magic really starts to show itself. John was performing at Monday Night Magic, Asi was there as a relative newcomer to New York, and he was completely taken with John's performance. It had a narrative arc, a flow to it, everything seemed to be part of a cohesive whole, and that really impressed Asi. So he introduced himself to John, and they became fast friends. And this is where I think the story becomes applicable to us, you and me. Magic is an art of trust and collaboration. We deal in secrets. We know things that we're really not supposed to share with non-magicians. So we need someone to talk to about those secrets. And magicians are the perfect group for us to form friendships. We already have stuff in common because we have a common language. We have read the same authors most likely. So there's an automatic familial type bond that we have with other magicians. And I felt this very deeply this past weekend at the Winter Carnival of Magic. I was there with a few of my buddies, and it does feel like an extended family. These guys I was with felt like brothers. And it ended up that they knew some people, and I knew some people, and we cobbled together an even bigger group of friends that hung out and introduced to each other and now have a connection with each other. And all of that was built on the foundation of trust. We all keep secrets, we all know secrets, and therefore we have something to talk about. Back to the book. At the beginning of each trick, you're getting kind of a cool look of an interview between Asi and John, talking about the things that worked for them or didn't work for them about a particular trick and why they came up with a new version or the one that they printed. They both work in slightly different circumstances, and in the second effect in the book, they both started off with a trick that they knew when they were young that they performed a few times, and John more or less discarded it because it wasn't practical for him. He preferred reset, pocket space, utility, but Asi was captivated by the idea of this trick and making it better. Together, they revisited it and came up with Sweet 16, which is this quasi-memory demonstration baked into a triumph. It's a cool effect, but I think what you'll gain from it is the insight into how two magicians work together to make something better or at least more suitable to their needs than the original. Here again, I found the same thing this weekend at the Winter Carnival of Magic. As my friends and I were sitting around what we call sessioning, we were discussing the tricks that we were working on, sharing effects and soliciting feedback and looking for growth. One friend showed us a double card to wallet, and me and another buddy were making some suggestions about things that didn't quite make sense to us. Why would you do this? And ultimately, he ended up changing the trick. We worked together to workshop it and improve what we thought the flaw was. Now, it takes a certain amount of vulnerability to be willing to do this, to put yourself out there and to be open to that feedback. And I think that's an important qualification for all of us. John and Asi obviously felt this ability to be vulnerable with each other, to share feedback, and carefully, constructively. And I think that's what we can take away from this. When we offer feedback, we need to be able to trust each other. Some of the best growth that I've ever experienced in magic came when I shared some of my magic with friends to ask for them to help me improve it. My friends care about me deeply. Your friends care about you. And we all care about magic. So what better group to solicit feedback and to say, how could I make this better? The third thing about having a friend group is that you have the ability to now share knowledge and resources. The old saying goes that none of us is as smart as all of us, and I felt that deeply this weekend. I was impressed with the knowledge that all of my friends had about books that they'd read, or tricks that they knew, sleights that they'd worked on or had seen and experienced. And while we were workshopping one of our friend's tricks, I couldn't remember exactly where I had read something that he was looking for, so I put it out there to you, the erudite magicians watching, and you guys were so helpful with your responses to help us find that particular trick. And that's the point, is that you can't know everything that's out there in the world of magic, but if you open yourself up to a world of friends and feedback built on a foundation of trust within the magic world, you will have access to way more knowledge than you could ever remember all by yourself. And I think you'll see that here in this booklet as well. So let's get down to brass tacks about the price and value proposition of this book. It is $40. Now that's fairly expensive for what you can get relative to other products in the market. You're getting 3 different effects. One of those effects has 2 different versions. You're getting all of the feedback between them. And as part of one of the effects, you're getting a marketed item that costs $10 on its own, and a write-up from Asi Wynn's book Before We Begin to teach you a little bit of pre-show for the one trick that you may want to employ. Now, you don't have to use pre-show. They give you several different options, but you are getting some value there from not having to buy those other books. Now, if you already have Stage by Stage, or you have Before We Begin, or you have this other marketed item, there will be less value for you here, but certainly it depends on what you're going to get from the interviews. I'll leave that up to you to decide whether it's worth $40 to read the thought process between John and Ozzy, as well as some great tricks. One more caveat on this. The second version of Final Sale will require you to print something that they don't provide. You'll have to have a friend who's decent with computers to help you to get the necessary item. It's probably not difficult, but I have not attempted to make it myself. At the end of the day, do I recommend this? Yes. If you have the disposable income and you don't mind spending $40 to support two wonderful artists who are sharing some great thoughts with us, then I recommend that you do so. But if you're at a point in your magic where you just want to learn more tricks, I want you to know that there aren't that many in here, and you can certainly get more tricks per dollar. All of the ones in here are great tricks, and one of them has even been performed on national TV. The bigger takeaway from all of this is that we all need friendships. We need it for the trust and collaboration, the feedback and growth, and for the shared knowledge and resources. I've been lucky enough in my life to have some really close friends built from the magic world. Some of my best friends I've discovered through magic. And I'd love to hear from you. What have your friendships in the world of magic meant to you? Sound off down below in the comments, and I look forward to hearing some stories about your magical friendships. As always, my friends, I appreciate you watching, and until next time, keep reading.